Hi, everybody. Welcome to Golden Rosa Tarot. It's been a minute since I posted, so it's nice to be back with you all. I have been going through stuff, which I know we all are. Um, Sometimes I feel like these readings are like when you see a dolphin like jump out of the ocean, but then it like goes back into the ocean and is like doing dolphin things. So I've been doing dolphin things, but now I'm jumping out of the waves again to say hi. Um, I feel like for myself and for a lot of people I know, it's been very challenging times lately, probably for all of us in some way or another. That is the human condition, right? And we have our own personal catastrophes and difficulties and challenges, and then we have this collective chaos that we're all navigating. And so what I want to talk about today is a topic I've been exploring for myself, which is in the midst of our personal and collective challenges, how do we recenter ourselves? How do we find like the whole being within that we are? How do we reorientate to a sense of balance and wholeness when everything's kind of changing around us, you know? And to be clear, I want to make the distinction. It's not about going back to who you used to be, because the changes that we go through, they change us, you know, and we're meant to change, we're meant to grow and evolve. And, you know, we have scars that we carry with us for our whole lives, unfortunately, and we have experiences that are, you know, before and after experiences. So it's not about how do we get back to quote unquote normal, but how do we completely embody our strength, our power, our internal guidance, our sense of self, even when the things that were maybe very much a part of who we are changing or ending or taking different forms, you know. And it doesn't always have to be something bad either, you know. It can be a good change, you know. Like, I'm sure anyone who's a parent would say that having a child completely changed their life and they're a different person now that they had a kid. And it's not that they regret it, it's not that it's a bad thing, but, you know, like, you often also hear, you know, new moms say that they have a hard time finding themselves again. Like, who are they in the midst of this big change? And so I just want to talk about this today because it's been on my mind too. I've been going through some very intense personal shakeups, and there's been, you know, very intense things happening in the world, as we all know. You know, I live in California, where we just had a big natural disaster with the fires, and I'm very fortunate and very blessed that it didn't affect my home directly, but it's affected the air, it's affected the water, it's affected, you know, the feeling of the place that you live in ways that are, you know, still being processed. And sometimes it can be hard, you know. It can be hard to do the things that used to make me feel like myself, like go to the beach when you're wondering if, you know, if it's safe to put your feet in the water or breathe the air, you know. So it's like, how do we really ground into ourselves? How do we find our whole truth, our whole wholeness within ourselves in the midst of things that are very life changing? And, you know, to be clear, it's never a complete process, you know. For sure, when an event first happens, you're not going to get there right away. It's something that takes time. And probably by the time you start to feel like yourself again, something else is going to come along. Such is the nature of life, right? We barely, you know, make it through one challenge and we get handed another here in Earth School. And so this reading isn't about like how do we become, you know, perfectly calm, stable people in every moment of our life, because that's quite literally not possible. But I would like to explore this topic just to give all of us, myself included, some tools so that we can feel a little bit more not in control, to be fair, because I don't think we really have that much control over our lives. That's my take on it anyway. But can we feel confident in ourselves? I've often thought about life as the analogy of becoming a sailor. Like, we're sailors on a sailboat in the ocean of life. We cannot, control when there's a storm. We cannot control the winds. We cannot control a lot of the things around us, but we can become better and better sailors. And in becoming better and better sailors, we can have a bit more confidence about facing the challenges that we're up against. And life, is just kind of the way it works. It's usually throwing us challenges that we really don't have the ability to deal with yet. Like, we become the person that can rise to that challenge by going through the challenge. It's the challenge itself that grows us into the being that can handle the challenge. So, we often feel overwhelmed and in over our heads, and like the waves are crashing in, and we don't know if we're going to make it out alive. And that's kind of, it's like when you're working out in a gym, you're like tearing your muscles, and that's what makes them build. So like life is constantly tearing at our sense of ego, our sense of control, our sense of knowing what's going on, because it's challenging us to grow beyond that, to grow beyond what we thought we were or what we thought we could be. And, back to the analogy of the sailor, I think too in life we have these really big storms that maybe leave us shipwrecked somewhere we never expected to be. Like, if your identity is in being this strong sailor, and then there's this huge storm and it shipwrecks you on some, you know, isolated island, and you're just by yourself on this island, your ship is ruined. How do you identify at that point? Like, who are you now that you don't have your ship, now that you're, not on water, now that you've lost your mobility? Like, we go through so many experiences in life that are like that, where we're just in a completely foreign territory, and everything that we thought we knew and everything that we thought we were is so completely challenged that it's very disorientating, to come back to the soul, to come back to this eternal part of ourselves, to come back to this part of ourselves that is actually large enough to handle these things. And I say that delicately because I personally detest the saying that, excuse me, the saying that God never gives us more than we can handle. And I personally don't agree with that. And I'm not trying to be blasphemous, but I'm just saying that with gentleness, that I think if that was true, there would be, no one who decides to opt out of their life. There'd be no one who becomes an addict. There'd be no one who struggles under, mental health issues that they don't have the tools to come out from under. And I'm going down a dark rabbit hole, I know. But I want to be delicate in saying that I don't necessarily believe that we can always just power our way through our challenges. Some of our challenges are, at least in the small picture, really kind of more than we can deal with. And so that's why I think it's really important to start to have a relationship with ourselves, with our core true selves. And so when we go through these really big storms, we can have a better chance at coming home to ourselves, whoever our true self is, even within this storm. And I think life, to speak on what I was just saying, think about a sailor. If you're not a very experienced sailor and you go out and you're hit with a, typhoon, and your ship goes down, it's not really your fault. And unfortunately that happens in life. You see it. You see people who have not developed the tools, not had time or the resources or the, nurturing or the guidance to have the tools to deal with the really big things that happen to them in life. And that's what I'm trying to say, is like, with compassion, the point of this reading is not to shame anybody and say that you should be able to endure anything that comes your way. It's just to be kind of realistic and pragmatic in reference to that, analogy with the sailor on the ocean, that if we can start to build some tools, if we can start to build a sense of self that transcends our circumstances, we have a better shot at making it through, you know. And well, I'm trying to be very delicate about the small picture, you know. In the small picture, we don't always have the tools to make it through a situation, but I do believe in the long story of our souls, that things do get sorted out. I personally believe in reincarnation. I personally believe that we are eternal souls that have, you know, all of eternity to grow and learn and to understand things, and that there's no such thing as a failure or a misstep ultimately, because ultimately we have way more time than we think as a human, you know, as a soul, to evolve and learn and grow through these things. So even in those times when there's a collapse, when there's an inability to handle the circumstances at hand, I'm not, you know, I want to be delicate and gentle to the human experience of that, because it's very real. But I also want to be ultimately uplifting in that, you know, our souls are extremely powerful. Our souls are eternal. Our souls do find their way back home. And, you know, ultimately, that's what I believe in, and that's what gives me hope. And so we can hold both of those truths at the same time, that the human experience can be extremely overwhelming, and that our souls are, you know, eternal, immortal, and all powerful. And so how do we as a human connect more to this eternal aspect of ourselves, so that we have a better shot in this present moment of making it through the things that are very overwhelming and very stressful and very, you know, disintegrating to our sense of self and our sense of what our lives are, you know. So I hope I made that clear. And, you know, I'm rambling a lot here, but if you watched my readings before, you know my readings are not predictive. I'm not claiming to be all knowing. These are just conversations, right? And this is a conversation that I just had with myself yesterday. I did a really in-depth reading for myself yesterday about how do you find your own sense of self-worth and your own sense of value in who you are when you're losing things and people that are so fundamental to who you believed yourself to be, you know. Like, it's something I'm working on in myself. It's not something that I have mastered. It's not something that I have the answers to. It's just something that I think is an important topic for myself. And so I'm tuning in today to explore this topic with you guys. And, you know, I know at this point I don't have a very large following, but I know that the people who do watch my videos, I know you all go through, you know, like really massive challenges as well. We all do. And so, yeah, let's just have a conversation about it. Let's talk about this. SHIT. Okay. So let's start off with some tarot. Dear Spirit. Ooh, we got one that just wants to pop out, but I'm not going to take it because I haven't asked the question yet. Probably most of you have watched a video before, but if you haven't, I just read the jumpers. But since I haven't asked the question, like, let's see if it comes back out later. Okay. So, dear Spirit, today we're asking you about how do we connect to our internal, immortal selves, our all-powerful souls, the part of ourselves that can handle this chaos that we are. Chaos? Did I say right? That came out weird. The chaos that we are enduring here on this planet, and these, you know, it's just everything's so temporal, right? Our bodies, our relationships, our homes, our, you know, we're just like holding on for dear life here. Like, how can we really start to form this relationship with the part of ourselves that really can't handle all this, you know? This is, you know, our life on earth is just a dream, right? Basically. Three of Cups, that's beautiful. Okay. Dear Spirit, how can we connect to this part of ourselves? Our wholeness, our completeness. It can take a little while to get a card. There we go. And dear Spirit, can we get one more archetype, please? One more energy to work with when we're connecting to our wholeness and our completeness. All right, lovely. So right off the bat here, we have Three of Cups. Holding that up. These decks are really pretty. It's the Shadowscapes Tarot. But I wish they were like 3 times bigger. Oh, which reminds me, I did not get my reading glasses. I did get reading glasses, and I forgot to grab them. I might do that. Okay. So, the Three of Cups, we have this image of these 3 mermaids, and they're coming together with their cups, sharing their cups. Cups are representative usually of the emotion, the imagination, our internal world, our internal waters. And I think this is a beautiful message coming through right away, is that we really do heal and find strength in community. You know, like I just watched that movie, The Breakfast Club, for the first time. It's funny because like I missed all the 80s movies. I'm like watching them as an adult, and like, you know, there's aspects of that movie that are definitely, you know, a little like definitely of another time, let's say. But there is, I think what's endearing about it, of course, is the message that despite our outer appearances, as humans, we really do share a lot of the same experiences, a lot of the same emotions, maybe at different times in our lives, maybe in different ways. But there is something extremely healing about just sharing our feelings, sharing what we're going through, and being really honest about it. Because, you know, like I said, like I'm going through some really major upheavals right now, but like I know probably all of you who are watching this are also going through upheavals. And we live in a society that's really really emphasis the individual, you know, and in this like saying, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, which I have just recently realized, or not realized, but it's come to my attention that the original quote of pull yourself up by the bootstraps was actually describing something that's impossible. It's actually impossible to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And that was the point of that quote. You know, I don't remember the full quote, but those kind of narratives can become so ingrained in society, so ingrained in like ourselves, internalized into this belief that if we can't do it all ourselves, that we're failing miserably, you know. And then you have this quote that says pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and that's supposed to be this, you know, mantra that you're supposed to be able to do this thing that is literally impossible. And in the original quote is showing that it's literally impossible, you know. And we all have we all have our strengths and weaknesses, you know. We all have areas in which we are self-sufficient, and we all have areas in which we need help and assistance and guidance. And most of us will go through very similar themes of loss and upheaval, and, you know, feeling lost, and, you know, like there's a very common thread through humanity of feeling a lot of the same things. And if we kind of hide that and don't share what we're going through with the people around us, then we can feel like we're the only ones going through this, you know, weight of the world, you know. So there's, yeah, I think this is extremely important, is that part of coming back to our wholeness and part of coming back to our empowered state is to talk about what's going on with us, you know, like to share our like authentic experience, you know. And of course that doesn't mean you have to, you know, like take on a victim mentality, or, you know, only talk about your problems, or, you know, all that. But if you can meet with another and say, this is genuinely what I'm going through, you might be surprised. You'll probably be surprised to hear that they have had similar experiences, that they've had similar moments in their life, you know. I'm often surprised at people in my life who give me really great advice, you know, and they're not really the people that I would think to go to for that particular kind of advice. But, you know, oftentimes those people, you know, will surprise you, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going through really similar things. And, you know, yes, I understand, you know, we're all in the same ocean, but we're in very different boats. It's true. We have different privileges and advantages and, like things that we're gifted with that maybe someone else isn't. And I'm not saying that we're all having an equal experience here on earth, but the human experience of emotion, the human experience of loss, the human experience of feeling alone are very universal. And so the more we realize that, the more we realize that even in our darkest moments, probably someone in our life has felt in a similar way. Probably someone in our life has something they could share with you, whether it's advice or a resource that could really help you feel supported. And so, yeah, I think that's a great message coming through. Next up, we have the Two of Wands. And the Two of Wands for me is very much about world building. It's funny because we also got the Ace of Wands here, which is the beginning, it's the inspiration, but they're showing up in the reverse order. So after we get the inspiration of the Ace of Wands, the One of Wands, when we go to Two of Wands, and that is world building in my mind. So that means taking the strengths of where you come from and combining the strengths of where you're coming from in the world with your own unique imprint. I really love the artist Noah Cyrus, and I feel like she's a really good example of that. Like, she put out that album, The Hardest Part, and it's so beautiful, and it's very much rooted in this sort of musical style that she grew up with. This sort of country, very organic music, very southern kind of music. Like, it very much embodies the culture that she is coming from in a beautiful way, but it also has this element of being very avant-garde and artistic, and also with the times, and I think that's a beautiful example of, like, we tap into our power when we tap into both where we're coming from in the world, like going back to everyone having something that they can offer. Even our most dysfunctional families, there's traits of our ancestors, there's traits of our family, there's traits of the places that we come from that do give us strength. Like, I live in the city, but I grew up in the country, so, like, I can ride a horse, I can start a fire, like, I have these skills that you might not assume I have as somebody who dwells in the city, like, and I'm grateful to have those skills, but I can also have those skills and really go out and, appreciate, like, an art show, or, some sort of cultural event that isn't available to me, like living in the country, like, to realize that our souls and our identity and our sense of self is fed both by where we come from and where we choose to go, like, and those things are going to be changing throughout our lives. They're going to be, like, ever dynamic, but the more we can be fed and nurtured by our roots, and that can be it can be difficult. There can be some really harmful things, in the places that we come from. But when we can focus on what we want to take from our roots into building our own world and our own sense of self, but not become engulfed in, like, I'm only going to go as far as what my ancestors went, when I'm only going to embody the beliefs and the concepts that were, handed to me as a child, but how do I take what's strengthening about where I come from and combine it with my own internal inspiration? And so that's an approach we can take to anything in our life, to know that, wherever we're standing in life, even if we feel all alone, we have all of our ancestors behind us. We have all the strength that they had in their souls pouring through us, that we are now the living manifestation of all of our ancestors. And for sure, there's some ancestors in there that have some wisdom for you, that have some strength for you. They're all wishing the best for you, I'm sure. Like, we have the past that's holding us up and saying, you can do this. Like, our ancestors have gone through, like, really difficult times as well. And then we also have the fact that we are this fresh new divine spark, and that we're we're walking the earth right now, and we have the ability to imprint these lives with our own unique energetic vibration, our own unique visions, our own unique ways of doing things, you know. So I think that's a beautiful way to balance a sense of self, is to really embrace the strengths that we are given, and also to really embrace the inspiration that we are, which brings us to the Ace of Wands, which is so cute here with all these little foxes. um, and yeah, like I was saying, the Ace of Wands is really about your own spirit, your own inspiration. You know, like if you can find it in your heart to believe that you chose to incarnate here on earth at this time, which I personally choose to believe that. I choose to believe that I chose to incarnate here. I chose my family, I chose my parents, I chose the challenges I would have, because there was a purpose for it all, you know, that there was, it all tells a bigger story, you know, and I believed at that time that my soul could handle this challenge, you know. So it's really important to stay close to our inspirations, to stay close to, you know, like no matter how difficult things are, you know, like lately I've been really trying to stick to the things that really inspire me, even though things are difficult, because I have to stay close to who I am, you know, like that soul essence that we are. It never changes, you know, it never changes our eternal soul, the challenges that we go through. So the more that we can connect to that internal light, that internal spark, that internal being, that unique expression that we are, you know, and also like it speaks to the creativity that we are. Like in the midst of our challenges, there's always the chance to respond to those challenges with a greater vision. I know, like here in California, there's a movement to try to get the new houses that are going to be built to replace the houses that were burned down in the fire with fireproof and sustainable, ecologically, I guess friendly is the word. I was trying to think of a better word. Materials, you know, and that's so beautiful, like that, because part of the problem right now that we're facing isn't, you know, the fires have basically gone out, but then now they're saying, you know, don't go in the ocean after it rains, or don't breathe the air, and like my tap water comes out like dirty milk, you know, and I'm a little concerned about what that's doing, because it's, you know, touching my dishes, it's touching my skin, you know. And if the bright side of all of this destruction is that humanity takes this opportunity to do things better in the future, you know, if there was another big fire and the homes were made with fireproof and ecologically safe building materials, then people A, wouldn't lose their homes, and B, the rest of us who are fortunate to still have our homes wouldn't be terrified to breathe the air or touch the water, you know. Like there is this chance, even in our biggest challenges, to purify, you know, to say what wasn't working in this situation and use that inspiration to change things for the better, you know. And it's not an easy process. And it's not something that happens overnight, but it is a power that we have. So I'm glad that that card came out first. All right. Moving on. It's really, you know, I like that the foxes came out in this. When I was setting up my set here, I was really drawn towards just kind of go around my apartment and find like random things to create the little set here. And I was really drawn to animals today. And I don't have that many animal figurines, but I have a coyote, a horse, like a bird skull, and a cat. And I was like, why am I so drawn to the animals today? I don't usually have them in my set. And I think there's a message coming through from the animals, that animals move through the world very instinctually. You know, like they don't question if they're tired. They take a nap. They don't feel any guilt about it. If they're hungry, they hunt and get something to eat. They don't say, well, you know, I'll do that later after I finish this project or whatever. And you know, our bodies are essentially animals, you know, like whatever you believe religiously is fine, but like our physical bodies are mammals, you know, they need rest, they need food, they need water, they need uh, comfort, they need shelter, you know, like, and I think what is so amazing about animals is, generally speaking, they run on instinct. I say that because I think that some domesticated pets can take on some sort of neuroses of their owners. It's just an observation. But generally speaking, an animal will follow its instincts to care for its body, like without any guilt, without any hesitation. A cat, you never see a cat go like, oh, I'm so lazy, I just, took a nap. Or a dog going like, gosh, I'm such a glutton, I just, hoovered my dinner. Like, no, they take care of their bodies. Like, it's instinctual. There's no shame. There's no trying to override what your body needs. And I think that's really important in difficult times, that we have to tune in. Our body is a great sounding board, for what our needs are. So anyway, I think that's one of the messages that the animals want to share with us. I think that's one of the reasons why so many animals came out today, is to say, like, in finding our way back to our center, we have to care for ourselves, on a very primal physiological level. We have to care for ourselves, and not have any guilt about that, not have any shame about that, not have any hangups, not try to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and skip breakfast or lunch, or run on 3 hours of sleep. We can't get back to our balance and our wholeness and our strength if we're not caring for ourselves on the most basic level. So there may be other messages, probably there will be, from the animals, but that was the one I was kind of sensing so far. All right. Staying on track with the animals here. Dear Spirit, please give us another animal friend for dealing with chaos and uncertainty, and coming into our wholeness, coming into our true selves, even when things are topsy-turvy. And a plant too. This is a plant and animal deck. All right. We have a hawk and thistle, and it says graceful persistence. And I'm so kicking myself because I know I'm going to, give me 1 second. I'm going to find my reading glasses. I will be right back. Okay. If you watched my last reading, you saw me struggle to read my little books, and I was like, I'm going to get reading glasses, and I did it, and then I forgot them. So anyway, we're back with vision. Okay. Hawk and thistle, and it says graceful persistence, which already sounds like good advice, right? The last time I tried to read out this book, I literally couldn't even find the card. I just gave up. Because I was reading it wrong. I read the number wrong, and I was just like, it's not here. They made a mistake. Excuse me. All right, the hawk and the thistle. The hawk is a keen and vigilant observer, so much that watchful and hawk-eyed have become synonyms. An apex predator, the hawk glides gracefully on the wind, its sharp talons ever ready. The thistle can thrive in a variety of environments, from verdant hills to rocky shores. It is spiked. Stinging leaves protect its radiant flower, which perches like a crown from its stem. Upright, you act fiercely while maintaining your grace and dignity. Sharpen your talons, but don't lose your crown. Reverse, external pressures have weakened your resolve. Remember your worth and guard it closely. And the messages are, am I too easily influenced by my environment? And how can I thrive in a difficult situation? Interesting. I was really working with eagle energy myself yesterday, which it's very similar to a hawk, and like, having that eagle eye or that hawk eye, and really praying for clarity. Like I've become a big fan of the serenity prayer lately, which I think we all know, but it's, please give me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And in that sense of like really clearly looking at yourself in situations, like, and I think that sometimes it's hard. We definitely have um I feel like my brain is just floating away with like a hot air balloon right now. Sorry, I'm trying to ground it. I feel like some kind of information is trying to come through, and it's just like, where is my brain taking me? So with both the eagle and the hawk, they have this very refined vision, and they glide up above, right? They're like gliding above the situation, and they have this really like amazing eyesight. And those aren't things that we immediately have as humans. We're usually in the thick of things, in the thick of our emotions. The saying, can't see the forest for the trees, is how it feels to go through a really difficult situation. And so, in my experience, when I just prayed over it and I asked, and I've been asking that a lot, I've been saying the serenity prayer a lot, and I've been asking for clarity a lot. Like, it's something that we can access. It might not be our first impulse is to feel that way, to feel clear and to have this like bigger vision on things, but it is a skill that we can develop, and it is a gift we can ask for. And so that's something to consider when you're going through something very difficult, is to ask to see the bigger picture, to ask to see things very clearly, because it's probably not going to be how you're dealing with situations in the moment. It's in the moment you're just usually really overwhelmed, and so it's good to remember that we can ask for these gifts, even if they're not what we would have at our disposal, via our own powers. Back to this Two of Wands. Ask your ancestors, ask those who've come before you to give you strength, to give you clarity, to give you wisdom in a situation. And these are really good questions too. Am I too easily influenced by my environment? Um, and that's something I'm learning about right now is enmeshment. It may or may not have been a part of your childhood blueprint, is to feel like you are so connected to another that their chaos is also your chaos. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes if it's your spouse or your child, it's kind of hard to separate yourself. But even then, we like, something that helps us have a internal sense of self, an internal strength, is to see clearly, like back to the serenity prayer, what can I change and what can I change? What do I just need to accept as someone else's path and decisions? And what do I actually need to change in myself? And it's so profound. It's so simple, but it's so profound. And so if our environment is feeling very chaotic, one of the steps to getting back to ourselves, I think, is to really go through that excuse me, that Hawkeye, that excuse me, that Hawkeye, that eagle eye, that intense perception, and really surgically dissect it and be like, do I have control over this? Is this someone else's problem? Is this someone else's problem? I mean, like, is this someone else's journey? Do they need to figure this out for themselves? Or am I actually responsible for this? Do I need to step in? And, of course, we're going to get it wrong sometimes. Of course, there's going to be times when, we take on something that wasn't ours to take on, or someone could use a little more support than we give them. It's, no one's going to get it 100% right 100% of the time. But it's a skill we can develop, is having that discernment of when some of our stresses are coming from things that aren't ours to carry, and that's a hard lesson to learn, but it's something I'm working on recently for sure. The thistle is talking about how it can thrive in a variety of environments because of its spiked, stinging leaves, protecting its radiant flower. And that's another thing too, is it's really important to have really strong boundaries. Like, I've been working a lot with the Queen of Swords tarot this year, which is an archetype of like being very balanced with your head and your heart. And she has a freaking sword, and she will use it, like, and it's not she's not going around stabbing people, but it's really important to know when to have your defenses up, to know when to cut someone out of your life, to know when to remove yourself from chaos or drama that doesn't, like, that's not yours to carry, because there's so much going on in the world right now. There's so much that is, some souls are playing out a journey that is, a much darker trajectory than other souls, and I think it's, for me, it's of utmost importance to protect those who are being oppressed, by those stories, by those trajectories. But we don't have to like try to worry about changing other people's stories, because every soul's going through their own journey. And the more we can kind of let go and be like, okay, well, that soul's going through its journey and I'm going through my journey, and that's what I have control over. And I can ask for the gift of perception to know when I'm supposed to get involved and when I'm just supposed to back off, and that can help us to have a stronger sense of self when we're not enmeshed, when we don't just automatically fall into the drama and the pain and the chaos of someone else's soul story when it's not ours to carry. So thank you, Hawk, and thank you, Thistle, for that message. And because animals are coming through so strong in this reading, I want to do 2 animal decks today. So our dear animal friends, can you give us some practical advice on how do we deal with the chaos of the world, and how do we come back to ourselves and feeling whole? No. We have this little mole. He's in the ground and he says, just trust. Let's see what the mole wants to tell us today. It's funny that we've gone from the hawk to the mole, right? We're getting like the whole spectrum here, from like the flying, apex predator to the tunneling little rodent. All right. But they both have a lesson for us, so that's beautiful. All right, just trust the mole. Mole not only sees poorly, but also hears and smells poorly too. The one ability he can rely on to guide him where he wants to go in his sense is his. Oh my gosh. The one ability he can rely on to guide him where he wants to go is his sensitivity towards vibrations. This is why Mole comes to teach us the medicine of absolute trust, even in the darkness. Wow, that's powerful. When you receive this card, it is a tremendous confirmation that you will find what you seek. Not only will things work out, but they will also be better than you can fathom with your current understanding of reality. Right now is of utmost importance to have unwavering faith, even if you don't see proof of any progress. Go forward. Do not aim for perfection, because it will only block you from success. Do what you intend to do, even if you may feel scared. Something that deeply resonates with your heart is awaiting you. The image of the sapling in the card represents your stage in the game. You have no idea if you will blossom into a great oak, the poetic rose bush, or perhaps the majestic redwood. But something profound is waiting for you, and you must withstand the waiting game. You must see your wish without seeing it, and hear your desire without hearing it. You must be your fullest self without even knowing what that looks and feels like. Wow, that's interesting. Being your fullest self without even knowing what that looks and feels like. What you want also wants you, but you must walk towards it with steadfast conviction. This is a card of mighty confirmation. Feel a breath of relief and get excited. Mole's medicine is simple yet deep. His medicine is letting you know it's safe to trust it's going to happen for you. So wow, what beautiful variety of messages from such different viewpoints, right? We have the eagle, which teaches us, or the hawk, which teaches us the power of sight and clarity, and then we have the mole that teaches us the power of trust, even in the darkness. To when he says, his sensitivity is the vibrations, like, which sounds all like new age and woohoo, but it's true. I think within our soul, like I love this image of the sapling. It's like, as humans, we often just feel like this little starter. We don't feel like we're this fully developed potential that we are, because what we are is so infinitely vast and grand, like our minds can't even imagine. Our minds and our egos cannot hold the true power of our souls and what we really are. Like, it's this, like, we are like this mystery to ourselves, and this mole medicine is saying, like, trust even in the darkness, trust even when you can't see or hear or know where you're going. Trust in this greater part of yourself, trust that it knows where it's going, trust that this spark of inspiration and light, and the seedling that you are, has a grand destiny. Like, I tell myself all the time, when I'm dealing with a challenge, like, I don't believe I would come here to earth to face this challenge just to have it end in defeat. I don't think I would have said, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sign up for this, horrible, crushing defeat. And yes, in the small picture, it can feel that way sometimes. Sometimes in the small picture, we really do lose things. We really do become just crushed by, grief and despair and brokenheartedness and dreams that don't come true. It's, but to believe that there's something even bigger growing through that destruction, even bigger, that's always taking us on this, like, this journey. You think about, like, if you guys have watched the movie Willow, I love that movie from back when I was a kid. And you have this little guy, he's like, you know an aspiring, magician, and he's, you know physically, he's not very foreboding, and he's a very soft-hearted, farmer, someone that would be considered sort of simple, by society's standards. He's, not wealthy, he's not big, he doesn't have any earthly thing about him that would make you think that he is going to be the one that saves the whole, trajectory of his society. Because what is so big about him is his spirit, it's his courage, it's his pure heart, it's his willingness to take on this challenge, it's his willingness to do what's right. That is this light that guides him through the dark, through his, seeming disadvantages in the physical realm. And he does end up being this, coming home to this, hero's, homecoming, where everyone's like, wow, you saved the village, you saved our, you saved us from the evil queen, or I forget the exact storyline, but that's our souls. All of our souls are that. They are this magical thing that has powers beyond what we can imagine, And that's why I think it's so beautiful. It says, this is why the mole comes to teach us the medicine of absolute trust, even in the darkness. You must know your fullest self without even knowing what it looks and feels like, and walk towards this with steadfast conviction. It's scary. It's scary to trust when things are crazy. But that's a beautiful message from all. Thank you. All right, I have been blabbery. I'm realizing it's like almost an hour into the reading, and so many cards to go. So I'm gonna try to pick up the pace here a little bit. So going out to our plant friends, our plant spirits, who would like to help us to feel more connected to our eternal selves in the midst of chaos, to come home to ourselves. Milk thistle. Oh, that's so interesting because we got thistle on the last card, right? The hawk and the thistle. That's, I love when this kind of magic happens where you're like, okay, there's so many cards in each of these decks, and then we get this like repeating pattern of the thistle. That's so interesting. Okay, so now we're gonna go deeper into the thistle, which is cool because obviously it's got a message for us today. Number 23. So milk thistle, the peaceful warrior. When it's upright, it means peaceful warrior, shield, truth keeper, shelter, sanctuary, safekeeping, and justice. When it's reversed, it means aggressiveness, harsh, impulsive, competitive, self sabotage, overdoing, and gossip. The guidance of the milk thistle. Milk thistle dispels the damaging and destructive thoughts that can induce an endless loop of self sabotage. Abandon insecurity, gossip, and fear based protection strategies that enable frustrations or a false sense of growth. Do not waste your time trying to control what cannot be controlled. We were just talking about that, right? Like a peaceful warrior, set your boundaries firmly and fiercely. Like Badger, Milk Thistle shakes up systems that hinder innovation and halts patterns and behaviors that stunt growth. Know that what you are not changing, you are choosing. Very cool. That feels very much like a confirmation of everything we've been talking about. You know, having our boundaries, shaking things up. If you're not changing it, you're choosing it. Um, cool. I'm going to go a lot faster now because I want to get through more cards. I won't give a lecture on every card, but I think that's a really beautiful synchronicity. And it is true, you know, to to know what we are is to also to know what we aren't. And what we aren't is other people. You know, we're each unique manifestations. And it's not to say that we don't have that, you know, emotional connection to other people. That's extremely important. But it's also really important to have our boundaries of tolerance in that we're not allowing other people's chaos to become our own. And I think that's this message with the peaceful warrior. It's like it's being very firm in your boundaries and not, you know, like a lot of times our struggles are increased, our suffering is increased by taking on, you know, other people's shit, you know, and it's really not conducive to having a strong sense of self to be taking on things that are not meant for us, right? All right, moving on, getting through this. Let's go now to the crystal realm. What dear mineral friends, do you have a message for us today about coming home to ourselves in the midst of chaos, drama, and challenges? Ooh, spirit quartz. I have off camera because it didn't quite fit into my set, but I'll bring it out because it came out. This beautiful spirit quartz. Isn't it pretty? I call it my sparkle slug because it kind of looks like a slug. It's very sparkly. All right. And the spirit quartz is connected to Chiron, which is astrological body that teaches us that our deepest wounds are our strongest medicine, you know. So that's, I was just reading about Chiron and how, you know, in life when we have those experiences that you go, God, I really wish I wasn't experiencing this, you know, like why did this thing have to happen? It's completely derailing me from my path. It's, you know, like I look at my chronic illness like that, and you're like, okay, I was going this direction, I was going to be a rock star, I was going to do all this stuff, and instead I got this chronic illness. Like, you know, why did this thing have to happen? And now, you know, I'm doing these tarot readings because I got a chronic illness, because I had to start studying herbalism and my soul and healing. And so um, this is such a beautiful message coming through, because when we're trying to find our true selves in the midst of chaos and trauma, it's really tempting to think that this chaos and trauma is taking us away from our true selves. And Chiron teaches us that it's our pain and our chaos and our trauma that's bringing us deeply into our true selves and our gifts, and that it's a bridge, not a wall, to our full potential. So it's really beautiful that's coming through. The key words are harmony, tenderness, and overcoming. Healing is an imperative part of your soul's journey and your human experience. You're born with figurative scars where your soul was previously wounded or experienced heartache or loss, and these scars help you understand where you are most vulnerable. You will likely suffer in these particular areas of your life, even though you didn't cause the wounding. If you have begun to notice or experience these patterns of pain, it's time for you to address them so you can begin to heal and understand yourself more deeply. The centaur Chiron reveals your deepest soul wounds and brings about the reoccurring challenges you will face when your soul wounds resurface. You must not conceptualize your wounding negatively or as a burden, but simply perceive it as your opportunity to learn that you can overcome and survive everything and anything. With every wound or downfall comes strength, and within these strengths you will find your teachable moments. It is time to begin the journey of your healing your wounds. To guide you through your healing, use spirit quartz, a crystal of harmony and alignment. Spirit quartz is the bridge between you and your spiritual journey or path and has extremely powerful and high vibrational energies. It continuously amplifies these energies through each and every point on the stone and revitalizes and cleanses and clears blockages, elongating the effects of the spiritual healing work. Spirit quartz is a great tool to use at home or at work in a group environment in which you need to inject balance, harmony, and healing. Use spirit quartz during meditation to link yourself with higher realms as it enhances psychic energies. It activates, opens, and connects to all your body chakras, removing all blockages so that you're open and receptive to healing. And the affirmation is, I allow Chiron to show me my wounds and find strength within my healing journey. Oh, thank you, spirit quartz. I'm going to put it back over to the side. I keep it out because it also is supposed to help you with your intuition, so I always keep it around when I'm doing a reading. It's so pretty, right? All right, let's go up to the sky now and get some advice from our dear heavenly bodies. Dear heavenly bodies, can you please give us some advice for feeling whole and returning to ourselves in the midst of chaos and challenge? Sometimes it takes a minute. We are getting the astrological sign of Libra coming through today as a message. Consideration, fairness, and harmony. And we have the image of the balanced scales here. All right. Libra. Like an energetic balancing scale, Libra is always weighing things out and considering the options. Being Venus ruled, its need for harmony creates a love of beauty, favoring traditional laws like proportion and symmetry. Libra is sensitive to its surroundings, not only seeking aesthetic pleasure, but peace, balance, justice, and fairness. These people explore themselves through relationship, be it interpersonal or their relationships to the outside world. They use their discernments and connections to give themselves shape, making them natural in partnership and dutiful friends. Disliking chaos and arguments, they are caring listeners and judicious problem solvers. In excess, this thoughtful energy leads one down the garden path lost in consideration, indecisive, and paralyzed by choice. Libra is not indecisive by nature, but it's an easy consequence of its quest for balance, as nothing is perfect in the physical realm. The energetics are beauty, justice, and fairness. Experiences peace and balance, partnership, and consideration. The shadow is indecisive and a flimsy sense of self. Interesting, because that's what we're talking about, right? Is like regaining our sense of self. And so it's saying if you're excessively in your thoughts about life, like it's good to be in balance. It's good to do everything thoughtfully. But even that in excess can keep us from truly being ourselves, which is interesting because it kind of brings me back to like what I was saying about the animals. You know, the animals are, they act on their instincts, they act on their primal knowing of what needs to be met, what they need in that moment. You know, and over analyzing can be a shadow when it comes to taking care of ourselves in the physical realm, right? It says, imagine a house where each room represents a significant part of your life. These rooms include but are not limited to self-care, work, passions, relationships, and exploration. Walk into each room and notice how it feels. Which ones are vibrant, flooded in light? Do any feel dark or dusty? Are any outdated or in need of organization? Considering what you give to each room and what it gives you in return. Your guides want every room to be somewhere you love spending time, where the energy you give matches the energy you receive. They want your house as a whole to feel balanced, supportive, and inspiring, and your life as a whole to be a true reflection of your soul. Wow, that's a beautiful message. And those are, it's a good meditation, to imagine each of these areas of our lives because they're all really important, important aspects of what makes us feel whole. Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we happy in our work? Are we following our passions? Do we have good relationships? Are we exploring the world? And obviously, as I've said a couple times in this reading, we're never going to get it perfectly right. And it can be a detriment to even try to get it perfectly right. But there's still a beauty in when we're constructing, this like, world building, to consider all aspects, to consider all sides, to consider all the different things that are important to us and ask, are we giving enough to each of these aspects of our life? Are we giving too much to things that we should actually be putting boundaries up towards and putting more energy into self-care or the things that we're passionate about? Um, and something that I feel, and my sense of reality is always changing, is that I think that, we're all extremely unique and like a beautiful gem. Like each one of us is a beautiful cosmic gem or star or whatever imagery is most beautiful to you. But we're all equal in value, and some people go through life and they need to learn that everyone around them is as valuable as they are. And some people need to learn that they are as valuable as everyone else. And because things are rarely perfect, we go back and forth, and sometimes we're excessively self-centered, sometimes we're excessively self-sacrificing. But I think that this Libra energy is really beautiful to come through for finding our true sense of self. It's like, how do we balance ourself and the other? I just made this like little glyph for myself, and it's a circle, and it's like has a cross through it, and it's like self, other, head, heart. Because I can tend to be excessively focused on other people and excessively in my heart energy, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's like anything in excess becomes a detriment. Like it says, like if you're in your shadow, then you have a flimsy sense of self. Like how can you build a strong sense of self if you don't have a sense of self? So you have to consider yourself. You have to, for me, my challenge is to activate my head, my mind, that, intellect in my relationships, and have that sword and have that boundaries about where I'm throwing my energy away to a lost cause of someone else's drama. Like that's a hard lesson for me to learn. But we each have our challenges when it comes to peace, balance, partnership, and consideration. And that includes the relationship with ourselves. So yeah, it's never going to be perfect, but having a strong sense of self does require a sense of awareness about balance, to at least start to understand where things are out of balance, and where we can begin to bring more energy into the areas that we've been neglecting, and where we can sort of take some energy away from the things that are kind of just draining us, right? All right. Thank you, Libra, for the beautiful message. I'm just going to say this feels like the alchemy of like, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm taking an alchemy class right now, and we have the homework of this meditation, which I haven't done because I'm not that. Honestly, it's kind of challenging to my brain, the extent of it, but you're supposed to imagine like all the elements within you, earth, fire, air, water, and understand, where each one is in balance or out of balance. But I understand it conceptually, like when I was feeling really too much in my feels the other day, I was like, okay, I'm way too watery right now. And technically, the thing that balances too much water is earth. Groundedness is what would balance out an excess of emotions. But I just felt intuitively I needed to work with fire, to kind of dry up some of those emotions. And so I was taking some herbs like cayenne and St. John's wort and calendula, which are related to the element of the sun, and wearing like a citrine and a carnelian necklace, which are also gems which relate to that sun energy, that fire energy. And I did start to feel better. I did start to feel less like I was just drowning in a pool of my emotions. And not that I became hardened and, stopped feeling my emotions, but I was able to balance out that excess, and that's, I don't think our true self is expressed when we're in a detrimental imbalance. So it is interesting to learn, alchemy is interesting to learn about these different elements of ourselves and how to balance them. So on that topic, let's get an alchemical process for centering into our true selves in times of chaos. It's funny. I think I just pulled this card for myself. The Drowned King. When you're drowning in your emotions. I just realized my chair is really squeaky and I keep wiggling around. Sorry if that's making background noise. Okay. The Drowned King. Ego collapse, losing faith and humility. Oh, sorry, not faith. Losing face and humility. In alchemy, the archetype of the king is often used as a symbol for the ego, the aspects of the self that is attached to its title, name, and identity. It is said that the drowned king is a required phase in the process of transformation. Only through dissolving who they thought they were is the king able to become who they're destined to be. Wow, isn't that powerful? That is so true. When we're going through these challenges and we're like, this is no, this isn't me. This isn't what I want to go through. It's actually exactly maybe what we need to go through to be in our full power. Um, so I'm going to read that again because I lost my place. only to only through dissolving who they thought they were is the king able to become who they are destined to be, a kind and benevolent leader. How does the drowning occur? Not voluntarily, that's for certain. Through circumstances beyond their control, the king is brought to their bottom, to their knees. When this card appears, expect a huge blow to the ego, impactful enough that it causes one to turn their life around, prioritizing grace over greed, benevolence over brutality, sovereignty over selfishness. The drowned king eventually resurfaces as a fully changed and benevolent being. That's such a powerful message for us today, right? I don't think I need to add anything to that. It's it's that ego death. It's the death of who we thought we were, who we were supposed to be, how things were supposed to go. Our timeline, our sense of what a perfect relationship or a perfect dream job was going to look like. Our beliefs can sometimes be, most often are, so much smaller than what our soul wants for us, and it can be really hard to see that when you're drowning. You're like, why are you drowning me, universe? Like, this is not nice of you. And the universe is saying, you have to drown to become who you're going to be. So something to keep in mind, that sometimes it's the death of everything we knew that makes us who we're meant to be. All right. Trying to make this not the longest reading ever, and it's already really long. Just a couple more cards here. I'd like to check in with Kuan Yin, who's amazing bodhisattva of compassion. Dear Kuan Yin, what would your advice be for us human beings here on Earth, trying to find our true selves in the midst of this never-ending chaos that is life on Earth? And we have Blue Mother, Yellow Mountain, Gibeus Moon. And the message is, are you holding on to something that you feel is being pulled away from you? Do not fear. When you let go, something even more wonderful shall be discovered. Trust in the goodness of life nurturing you. You're going through a process of being spiritually cleansed of fear and control. Wow, that's so powerful. That's so true, because when we go through these processes, when we become drowned, when we have to let go, when things die, when things end, we're scared. We want to be able to control things, but we have to be spiritually cleansed of our ego to become our bigger soul, right? You will be able to blossom into the fullness of your being with curiosity and openness. Don't be scared by the perceptions of disappointment or failure. These are just signs that the mind needs to let go of control and trust more unconditionally in the goodness of life. This will bring greater joy than you had thought was possible. If there has been sickness or prolonged emotional suffering, mental despair, or any struggle that has tested your powers of endurance and faith, this testing time is drawing rapidly to a close, and light will soon be pouring in. Put your faith in the light and know the darkness is over. Have you lost your faith in people? Your trust and goodwill is going to be restored. You ask to trust in the goodness of life and leave the rest to the divine. The peak time for action is now. Jump on opportunities that are there for you. Take action that feels inspired by the heart. Do what you need to do. Now is the time when your every action will be in alignment with a wave of energy reaching its crescendo. You can use that like a surfer catching a wave to move towards the sacred shoreline. What a beautiful message. Just confirming, that when we're asked to let go of things, there's always this, kind of conflict between our egos and our souls, our head and our heart. And often our losses, often the chaos is this initiation into this greater freedom, this greater like joy of knowing that you're always grounded in this eternal self that really can't know suffering, that really can't know endings, that's just an illusion of this sort of temporal lifetime that we're living through. And not easy lessons, but a beautiful message. Thank you. And let's also ask our dear Mary Magdalene, who's a dear ascended master who went through a lot of pain and chaos in her life. Dear Mary Magdalene, do you have a message for us today about coming home to our true selves in the face of pain and chaos? I love this. Love is already won. Silence, I speak from my heart. The most important voice we could ever hear doesn't have a voice at all. It is the silence within the heart. The silence of... I'm gonna start over. The most important voice we could ever hear doesn't have a voice at all. The silence within the heart isn't devoid of sound or images. The silence within us is often deafening with the volume of its truth. The silence is often so confronting because it asks us to face what we already know. Silence is mentioned in two significant points in chapter 9 of Mary's Gospel. First, after Mary had said these things, she was silent, since it was up to this point that the Savior had spoken to her. This verse implies that everything Mary shares in her Gospel was word for word what she heard from within her. Silence is only a virtue when we're truthful about sharing word for word what we hear in our heart. It's never virtuous to hold back or silence a truth that lives within us, no matter how the outside world might perceive it. It's not our work to judge truth within us so critically that we never even express it. This ends up being one of the main regrets of the dying, that we didn't say out loud what was repeating itself already in the silent knowing of the heart. Mary says, "From this hour on, for the time of the due season of the aeon, I will receive rest in silence." This is the silence that comes when all the seven powers of the ego, to clarify. This is the silence that is triumph, a tiny, unceremonious, and unseen victory, and yet no less monumental. Imagine each of the seven powers holding a microphone. When we do the work that Mary's Gospel reveals, we let love reach into where it's never been before, and we release the tight grasp each power has on the mic. Silence is our reward. Silence is when we have overcome all those egoic powers that would have us believe we are anything other than love. Silence is being submerged in love. Silence is when all we hear is that steady stream of what the heart has to say, and the joy and enjoys the courage to simply express it, word for word, saying only what the heart already knows. When the ego is silent, what do I hear my heart share? No, that's such a profound message, that when we do break down our ego, when we do break down everything that we thought life was supposed to be, we can hear that true voice of our heart, and we can speak that true voice of our heart. And then we can know that love has already won. I don't mean that facetiously. It's just it's a lifetime of work to do these things, right? But it's beautiful to know that when we do break down our ego, we can rest in this peaceful silence of our truth. All right, let's wrap it up. It's been a very long reading. Thank you if you've stuck it out this far. And I always like to finish with a Sacred Destiny card. Dear Spirit, thank you so much for guiding us today in this topic of finding ourself and our wholeness in the midst of chaos. And the final message from Spirit today is freedom. The cliff swallow. The swallow flies free on wind currents and thermals in remarkable aerial maneuvers, igniting the expression free as a bird. In many cultures, such as that of the ancient Egyptians, the swallow was thought to carry souls to heaven. Early sailors would tattoo themselves with an image of the swallow, so if they drowned, the swallow would carry their souls to the heavens. In poor light, a cliff swallow looks brownish and gray. However, in good lighting, it is a luminous metallic dark blue. Cliff swallows traditionally make their nest on vertical cliffs, carefully crafting them out of mud. Although they can nest solitarily, they usually nest in colonies. When one finds a cloud of insects, it alerts the other members of the flock so they can all be nourished. Even though they fly free, their community supports them. And that's a cool, like, I love that idea of, like a lot of this reading about like finding your true self has been this sort of back and forth pull of like, we do need other people, we do need communion, we do need connection, we do need emotional, care in our lives, but we also need to be like really like sovereign in like who we are and not let the tribe sort of dictate, how we think, how we feel, not let anyone else sort of silence that truth of our own heart, but we are still in this community together, and yet we're unique in ourselves, and finding that balance, like going back to that Libra energy of the balance of our true selves within our communities. It's a really good meditation for, finding our true selves. The sacred landscape wants you to know. Express yourself without hesitation. Break free and let your spirit fly. Make choices that increase your freedom. Don't be tied down. Laugh, dance, explore, and go beyond predictable behavior. Be daring. Cast aside restrictions. Find your wings. As you do, you'll help others find theirs. You're not here to be ordinary or live a mundane life. You're here to step beyond limitations and self-imposed boundaries. Do not be trapped by convention or the need to please others. Choose life on your terms. Don't accept rules that don't feel right. You can be immensely free and yet still be a part of a loving, supportive community. Oh, well, that is a beautiful message. I feel like we have come full circle, and it's been a very long reading. So thank you for being here if you're still here. And I send you so much love on your journey. Blessings to you.